Joins us to break that down for us. Hormazd, in your understanding, how significant are these listings for job positions in Mumbai and Delhi by Tesla?
Well, I think it's been clear that Tesla has been, I would say, flirting with India for a long time. They were planning to come in some years back, testing cars over here. We saw them on Indian roads, some of them not suitable because of ground clearance issues. Then they were looking at certain SUVs. Then I think the other talk was they were looking at possibly setting up a manufacturing base in India, which would really give them substantial scale. Clearly, with that, the Indian market wouldn't be large enough. They would need to find export markets, but that in today's scenario is quite difficult. And ironically, with America also, imposing tariffs, with other countries, reciprocating countries, we don't know what scope an India-made Tesla would have, let's say, back in the US. The idea was to make one particular model for global markets. That's the way that could give it scale. They had a small model which was codenamed Redwood, but that again still, has seen delays. So I think, while Tesla is the poster boy of the EV world, and as is Elon Musk, I think, I don't see any major impact. But again, Tesla coming to India, because it's Tesla, obviously is of great significance.
Yes, indeed. That assumes significance. But one of the key hurdles, because you said it's been a while that Tesla has been flirting with an India entry. Now, the hurdle has been India's import duty structure. The Prime Minister had a meeting with Elon Musk. How pivotal a moment could that have been? Do you think there were clear assurances from the Indian side that have accelerated Tesla's plans, at least in the current context?
Well, I think even before any discussions have happened, these are all recent. President Trump just got elected, but even before, to kind of facilitate Tesla's entry or companies like Tesla, what the Indian government had done is if you invest more than $500 million, you have a duty reduction up to a certain amount on CBUs and imports. So clearly, policy that was in a way designed to facilitate an easier entry for Tesla. I'm sure that's what they'll be looking at because clearly they want to sell cars in India. That's where they want to really establish a footprint. But again, these the smaller, compact, affordable car is still, it probably will happen. So I think in the short term, really not much impact. I expect there will be largely imports and largely cars like the Model 3, Model Y especially, which would kind of come over here. And it'll be a while before we see any manufacturing plans.
So you think it's going to be a while before they would go in for a local assembly first? Would that make financial sense for them as well, you think? Or do you think they're going to hold out for lower import duties before they commit fully in that sense?
Yeah, well, I think they've got their lower import duties for making an entry over here. Then clearly, once you start manufacturing here, it's local, so import duties don't really matter in that sense. Of course, they'll be on components and things like cells and batteries and stuff like that. But that's then, it's a level playing field for everyone. So I think really, it's a market that Tesla is looking at. I don't think they're expecting it to be a massive market. Of course, China is where the action still is very much for Tesla. It's right at the top, fighting with BYD. And clearly, I think Tesla also has its own home turf now to protect. So I think in terms of complete commitment and focus, Tesla's got a lot of fires to put out right now. And India, while they might put their toe into the Indian market, I don't see it being a very, very high priority at the moment.
But what about its premium positioning? Because they're aiming for a mass market. For success in India, they'll have to get their pricing right. If Tesla is going to be that kind of market, what of their offerings and at which price points do you think they're going to have to hit India to make a real impact?
Well, I think they would typically follow a top-down strategy because you would start with a small network. Again, they'd have to, I don't know if they would have to look at putting their supercharging network, which is not going to be easy in India. So I think they would start at the high end and, start, progressively making, as they localize, as they set up a manufacturing plant, putting in more and more mass market models. But again, I think the mass market end is something which Indian companies have really stitched up over here. Very, very competitive on price. Clearly, Tesla has its wow factor in its software, the technology, even the performance. That's really where it scores over everyone else. But I think again, coming into the Indian market, there are different parameters. And, I think one needs to realize that India is such a unique market that no real global model has been successful in India ever. And vis-a-vis, Indian models are not successful abroad either. So very, very distinct requirements, preferences for cars in the Indian market. And,
Yes.
it's, no global company has kind of cracked that yet.
Yes, I would have to agree with you on that, Hormaz. But since we are such a nascent EV market as well, and consumers are still warming up to it, as unique a market as we are, hybrids are becoming a preferred choice for many. And we've spoken about that in the past when we were talking about the pickup in EVs and whether or not we need to. And you were suggesting that hybrids perhaps as a stepping stone might be an idea. But given all the range anxiety, concerns about the charging infrastructure, overall costs as well, do you think Tesla would have to face the same challenges in pushing EV sales, just like domestic EV players?
I think, by the time Tesla comes, I think there will be a jump in penetration of EVs, and that in turn will kind of accelerate the kind of, let's say, charging infrastructure, the development of it. We've already seen a phenomenal response to the Mahindra, the new EVs which they have. That in itself kind of, creates a bit of a buzz, kind of tends to pivot people more towards EVs, people sitting on the fence. And if the product is compelling enough, it could even tempt people to overcome fears of charging and range just to have that product. So really a very compelling EV is, can really swing people sitting on the fence or even naysayers to buying an EV.
But even if you go beyond consumers' hormones, Tesla's entry could also have a significant impact on the entire EV supply chain in the country, whether you talk about battery manufacturing, something you alluded to, even charging networks. But do you think Tesla is going to be like a player where it concerns itself with how the industry functions? How do you think it's going to work with Indian partners, if at all you think? Or do you think they're going to go after that independent path that we see them do elsewhere?
No, and the supplier side, I think they already work with a lot of Indian suppliers, so that is one thing that they do. I think it's more on their retail. How do they retail their cars? I mean, clearly, don't forget there's no FDI in retail, so to have its own distribution network, that might be a challenge. The Mercedes has found a way around that with the retail of the future. There is a way to do that, but I think clearly, it's not going to be easy setting up distribution in India. So I see Tesla initially mainly in the main metros, really small volumes, like the way the luxury cars are. And I think it's, then, as I said, progressively, there'll be deeper penetration into the country in smaller towns and cities eventually when the mass market car comes. But I think that's going to be a long way off.
Hormaz, only yesterday I was talking about the drop in Mahindra's stock price, and perhaps one of the reasons is that this buzz has been growing about Tesla's entry. I don't know whether it was the reason or not, but I'm just asking our domestic EV makers, Tata Motors, Mahindra, they've been ramping up their game like you said, but how is Tesla going to really shake up that competitive landscape? Do you think they will? Will Indian automakers really be forced to rethink their strategy, or is that point overstated right now?
No, I don't think they would compete head on in many ways. And I think also the offerings are very, very different and unique. I mean, if you see what Mahindra offers in terms of the feature set, in terms of, just the design, that sort of thing, it's quite different from what Tesla does. Tesla's, as I said, very, very software focused. They have this kind of very it's like it feels like a more like a computer on wheels. That's what it is very even functional in that sense. So I think they're going to be very different cars, different price points. I really don't see it competing too much. Probably they would compete with the Hyundais, Kias, the more expensive ones, and maybe even some luxury car makers. But I think the Tatas and Mahindras, they're going to be fighting amongst themselves, and as will Maruti, which has also launched an EV and likely to launch it this year. So I think it's going to be, completely two different, let's say, segments of the EV market.
But what about another foreign player? You did mention BYD, the Chinese EV giant, has been quietly growing its footprint in India, and they are trying to get more market share without much fanfare. How does Tesla's approach really compare to what BYD has already done? And can Tesla learn a thing or two from the Chinese automakers' India playbook at least?
Well, I think they're completely different in that sense. I mean, in the sense that I think one advantage Tesla has is that it's able to easily, in fact, they're being wooed by governments to invest. Whereas, as we know, Chinese companies, because of geopolitical tensions, very difficult for them to invest, if not impossible. So I think this is the fundamental difference. You've got here Tesla literally being wooed to come and set up shop in India. Whereas for a lot of the Chinese players, there's right now a wall.
Yes, that is very true. But, on the same note, Hormazd, Musk has spoken about making India a key part of Tesla's global expansion. But we've seen Musk hesitate before. Is this time different, do you think? Are they finally all in, or do you think there could be more hesitation?
No, I think they would be coming for sure. I don't know whether what you mean by all in. By all in, I would mean by investing a huge amount for full-scale manufacturing. To do that, you need products that are suitable and at a certain price point, because to manufacture, you need a lot of scale and volume, which you can only get with price, because affordability is still an issue. And I think, if they can make a model here, which they can export to global markets, that would give them that sort of volume. But as I said, it's not easy now exporting cars, because other countries have their own kind of tariffs and walls, and, they want to kind of promote local production in their own country. So it's got a bit complicated. But I think the way I look at it is Tesla will come with their existing range, first as CBUs, and later put that with an investment to kind of produce a mass market car in the future.
Always fantastic getting your insights. And this about Tesla's India game plan. Clearly, this is a pivotal moment, not just for Tesla, but for the entire Indian auto industry, and whether Tesla can truly disrupt that EV space here or face unexpected roadblocks remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, competition is heating up. Consumers are in for exciting choices ahead. And of course, like you mentioned, it's happening in different segments. So Tesla, of course, will be in a different league, but we'll see exactly how it plays out. But thanks again, Hormazd, for joining us on Business at 9 and sharing your expertise. We'll be tracking this story very closely.
Thanks.
And meanwhile, we're looking at Elon